The voice is a really important tool for an actor. So it's important for actors to make sure that they're taking care of their voices. I'm sure we all have experienced a time when we have lost our voice. And the reason that that happens is because we've overused it. So with the voice, what you can imagine is you have your vocal cords in your throat, and you can imagine these two vocal cords here. And when we overuse them, what's happening is to create sound, those vocal cords are actually flapping against each other to create sound waves. And when we overuse them, they're doing that so much that they actually start to hurt one another. And what happens is they'll dry out and get red and inflamed, and then we won't be able to use them because they've swollen up. So for actors, step number one is to make sure that they're staying hydrated, because that keeps those vocal cords nice and lubricated so that as they're hitting against one another, they're not going to necessarily get as inflamed and as irritated. So step one for good voice care is always make sure that you're staying really hydrated. And it's important to hydrate like 24 hours in advance of using your voice. So it's not going to be enough to just drink a lot of water right before you go on stage. You actually want to start hydrating your body at least 24 hours in advance. And professional actors just try to stay hydrated all the time so that they can be constantly using their voice well. The second thing that actors can do to take care of their voice is to make sure that they're not straining. And so we've talked previously about different resonators and using the breath to send the air forward. What we don't want to do is ever feel any tension in our throat. So if you're ever really feeling tight in your throat, that means you're overusing your voice. Another thing that actors can do to take care of their voice is to be aware of what different substances can do to their voice. So things like smoking are going to make it difficult for you to have as much oxygen capacity in your lungs, so you're not going to be able to breathe as deeply and send your voice forward. That said, some actors actually like to smoke because it changes the vocal quality of their voice. The reality is ultimately it's not a healthy choice to be making for taking care of your voice long term. The second thing to do is to avoid things that are diuretics. Diuretics are just substances that make you urinate a lot. And so caffeine and alcohol are some of the most commonly consumed diuretics. When we're using those, they cause us to actually get rid of more of the fluid from our body more frequently. And really what that's doing is it's just counteracting all of the hydrating that we're doing. So it doesn't mean that you can't ever drink coffee if you're using your voice, but you want to know if I'm drinking coffee, that means I'm consuming a diuretic, which means I need to counteract that by hydrating even more. Another thing that actors should avoid is when an actor does feel like their voice is potentially getting to be damaged, or they're starting to feel some sensitivity in their voice, the best thing that they can do is actually just stop using it. And in the field of acting and singing, what we call that is going on vocal rest, where we actually just stop using our voice for an extended period of time, which prevents us from irritating or inflaming things any more than they need to be. It allows our voices to recover and to heal. We want to continue to be hydrating as much as possible while we're doing that. Another thing that actors want to try to avoid is dairy. Dairy, when consumed, especially in proximity to having to use your voice, can actually kind of coat your throat and make it difficult for your mechanisms to work quite as effectively as they could. Again, all of this is about balance and moderation and finding the right balance between using your voice and overuse, the right balance between hydration and other things that counteract hydration, like diuretics and dairy and just overuse. So I hope that that's helpful for you as you consider ways to take care of your voice so that you can use it effectively long term when you're on stage.